Hello everyone, I'm going to show you 3 different ways to increase, because I have been asked quite a few times on videos about different ways about increasing, how I increase. There are three different ways that I do increase. I have done a video like this on my main channel, my Sheila's Knitting Tips and other stuff. I'm not sure whether I've done anything like that on this channel, but I'm going to do an updated one anyway. So I have done the 3 ways on here, which I'm going to show you. That's one way where you can see the little bar across, a little bump. There's another way there which is not as noticeable, and another way there that's not as noticeable. So I'm going to show you the first one. I'm going to show how to do this one first. With that one, I'm using thick chunky wool and thicker needles to make it easier for you to see what I'm doing. So I'm going to knit the first stitch and knit the second stitch, but I'm going to knit into that stitch, the wool round, bring it out, and then I'm going to knit into the back of that stitch. So you're knitting into the back of it as well as the front. And that makes that little bump, like what you see down there. That makes that little bump there. Now when you increase on there, you knit the first stitch and you do the increase into the second stitch. But it's a little bit different on the end, where you knit to your last 3 stitches, which is what I'll do. I'll pause that until I get there. I am now at the last 3 stitches, and when you did the first, at the start of the row, you knitted the first stitch and you knitted into the second stitch and then into the back of it, and the increase comes after the second stitch. As you can see, there's 1, 2, the little bump is where you've increased. But when you do it at the end of the row, you knit your last 3 stitches, because the bump, you're going to increase into this stitch, the third stitch, and the little bump is going to come in between that stitch and that stitch. It's actually in the same place as this one, but because you're doing it after the stitch, that's why you have to do 3 stitches at the end. So you knit into the front and into the back, like that. And there you have that little bump there, and then you have those 2 stitches like what you have on the other end. There's the bump and 2 stitches, and the bump and 2 stitches. So that's the first increase. And I'm going to knit a couple of rows so we can have some space between the increases, and I'll come back and show you the next one. So that's 3 stitches I've done, or 3 rows, sorry, from where I increased there. 1, 2, 3. Give you a little bit space in between each, so it's easier to see what I'm doing, what I've been doing. Now the next way I'm going to show you is I'm going to knit the first stitch, and then instead of doing anything with the stitch, I'm going to pick up that bar that you see down there in between those 2 stitches, the first stitch and the second stitch, and then I'm going to put it onto that needle. Now this way you have a long side to the stitch and you have a short side to the stitch, because if you see it there, you see the short side at the back there. Now what we're going to do is we're going to knit into that short part, so it's knitting into the back of that stitch that we've just made, like that. So you've knitted into the back and it's twisted that stitch. Do a couple more stitches there. And there you can see it's not as prominent as that stitch there. That one leaves a little bump across the bottom of the stitch. That one is a slight, there you can see there, that stitch there is a slight little twist. And then we're going to knit to the last stitch till we have 1 stitch remaining on the needle, and I'll come back then. So we are now at the end of the row and we have 1 stitch remaining, and we're going to do what we did at the start. Pick up that bar between the two stitches and put it on the needle so that the long part is at the front and the short part there is at the back, and then we're going to knit into the back of that stitch, and it twists that stitch. As you can see there, it's slightly twisted, and then knit that last stitch. There you can see the slight twist on the stitch there. It's not as noticeable as those stitches there. So that is the second way, and I'm going to show you the third way, but I need to knit 1 or 2 stitches in between, 1 or 2 rows, sorry, in between. So that is those rows done from that increase I did there. And I've only done 2 rows because the next one is to show you how to increase on the wrong side of the work. It's very similar to the last way I showed you. You're going to purl your first stitch, and like the last time, again we are going to pick up the bar between the stitches, but this time instead of the long part being at the front, it's going to be at the back. So we're going to put that stitch on the needle wrong way, like that, so that the long part of the stitch there, you can see that's the long part there at the back and the short part at the front. And this is where it's a little bit difficult. You may have to pick that stitch up with your finger to get the needle into it, and we're going to knit the short part at the front, and then we're going to purl across to the last stitch. You can see there, that's where it's been done. I will purl across and come back when I get to the end of the row. So we're now at the end of the row, 1 stitch remaining, and we're going to pick up that bar between the 2 stitches, and you're going to put the needle behind the stitch like that to pick it up, so that you get the long part at the back and the short part at the front. And like you can see, it's very difficult to pick it up like that, so you have to pick the stitch up with your fingers to get the needle underneath it, and then purl it like that, and then purl the last stitch, and show you from the other side. There you can see this where the stitches there, it's been slightly twisted. That one there, it just looks just a little bit different to that one because the stitch is twisted a different way around it. Another row, so it'll make it a bit clearer. So there you can see the stitch there, that's the one that we've increased there, and the same there. You see how it's twisted there. And that is 3 different ways to increase, 2 on the right side and 1 on the wrong side, because there has been quite a few people who have asked me about this. So I just thought I'd do a little tutorial for it. So if you'd like to see more anytime, give a thumbs up and subscribe, and I'll show you more when I get round to it. So bye for now.